everybody. Welcome to Monday, April 19th, 2021. It's a great day to be a junior Potter here. We're going to start a new unit today, our final unit of the year, which is about the environment, which is nice because the weather's getting better. You can actually go outside and enjoy the environment. So let's talk about what we'll see in the environment here. So first and foremost, bell ringer, make sure that you answer them up on there. We finished off on Friday doing that Darwin project. So if you did not turn in the Darwin project, make sure that you turn in your Darwin project now. And then we're going to do objective number 1 in the notes and go through it. And then you'll have a little assignment that goes along with it as we start to look at what makes up this topic known as ecology, which some things might be familiar to you, which is great, because you might have heard some of this stuff before. A lot of people find this to be one of the more easier to understand units of the year, which is why we put it last, because it's kind of a nice kind of wrap up for things here. And it kind of incorporates everything because it's the world itself is the environment. So first and foremost, let's look at what makes up a living thing. We got cells, we're made out of chemicals. This is kind of like a review of the year. We use energy, we talked about that. We react to things that are in our environment. We grow, we talked about the growing process there, and then there's we reproduce. We have the ability to produce offspring in there. So what do living things need? We need water, food, which there's two ways that you can be food-wise. There's what is called autotrophs, which make their own food, and there's things called heterotrophs, which don't make their own food. And then we have our living spaces as our shelter, and then we all need homeostasis, which is making sure our insides are working correctly. Now we have a good temperature to it. The second part of what we're going to look at today is how we organize things in there to it. So we have the non-living things in our environment. Those are called abiotic. So things like our water, sun, oxygen, temperature, the rocks, and anything that's not considered living is called abiotic. Those are a part of our environment. And then we have the living side of things that we got to look at. Plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, those are some of the big categories of things that are the living parts of any habitat there. But these two things form together to make up a lot of what our world is. So they need each other because the living things need non-living things in order to live. We need oxygen to breathe in order to live. Plants need carbon dioxide and sunlight and water in order to live. So a lot of the living things require the non-living things in order to live, and that's where their environment comes into play. The environment holds the non-living things for the living things to utilize. So we mentioned habitat a lot. You probably already know what the word habitat means, but we never formally, officially introduced it. Basically, it's your environment, and it provides things that you need to live, grow, reproduce, do all the things that you need to do in order to make sure that you are alive. So what the abiotic stuff provides is things like water, food, and shelter in order for us to live, grow, and reproduce. So we're going to be spending a lot of time dealing with ecology, which is how the living and non-living things interact with each other. So we're going to take a look at a wide variety of different things, from living things interacting with each other to non-living things interacting with the living parts of it. So we've talked about different levels of organization before in the past when we talked about cells. Cells make up tissues, which make up organs, which make up organ systems. But then what happens after that point? We get the actual species that exist. So we're going to add what we call the levels of ecology to it. What are the different levels that we can look at within the environment itself? We can look at it from a species standpoint. The species are just organisms that are similar that can produce offspring. So like squirrels, humans, tree, bush. Whenever you're talking about a singular thing, that you're talking about a species. When you're talking about all the things in the area, that's when we use the word population. So if we were to talk about like, all the squirrels in the area, we would say all the squirrels in Starved Rock. Or If we want to talk about human populations, we usually talk about them per city. How many humans live in Morton? How many humans live in Chicago? How many people live in Illinois? We look at a sample of an area, and that makes our population, but it's all the same members of the species. So it's all of the squirrels or all of the humans that are in there. We'll be using these two probably the most when it comes to things. We'll use the word population a lot because a lot of things that we study is by population numbers when it comes to ecology. We then have what we call the community, which is all of the different living parts in the area. So taking account of all the squirrels, the birds, the snakes, other mammals, reptiles, all living in one area. That is a community that exists there. We then have the ecosystem, where we bring in the non-living parts of the environment to talk about how we work with the living parts. We'll focus a lot on this when we talk about what they need. The different food, shelter, water. That's when we'll start talking about ecosystems and applying it from an ecosystem level there to it. And then we got the biggest area, which is the biome, which is looking at the living and non-living things, but only in areas that have a similar climate. So like we break things up into tropical rainforests or the desert or the ocean, these much larger areas in the world that all have kind of similar habitats, so they have similar environments, which means they might have similar plants and animals living there. So we group them together like that. And then we have the biosphere itself, which is the fancy way of saying the Earth, because we are we have life on this planet, so that's where bio comes from. The Earth is round. Yes, the Earth is round, so it's spherical shape, so that's where biosphere comes into play. And that's our notes for today. Going through a little bit of review stuff, but also adding in that extra bits and pieces to it. You do have an assignment for today that goes along with our notes. It's the ecosystem worksheet on here. So you can preview that up. You get 2 attempts on it per usual. There's 14 questions, but different ones require different things. Some of them obviously have more than others, like this one. You have a whole bunch of these, and you just got to say whether they're living or non-living. So there is that goes along with it. So that's due up alongside of it, so make sure that you answer up all the questions with it. Submit it when you're done, or actually you'll submit it and you'll see what you got right or wrong. Remember, you got 2 attempts on it. So that is your rundown of what we're doing on Monday. Tomorrow we're going to start looking at food chains and what's involved with the food chain. So we got an activity on Tuesday that we'll end up doing, which you should be able to do most of it from at home. We're not actually using any physical lab stuff for once, so you should be able to follow along with the directions very similarly to how we're working in class. Then on Wednesday, we'll look more deep into food chains. And then basically the rest of the week is dealing with food chains, food webs, and energy pyramids. So we'll be getting into that stuff there. But I hope you're doing well, staying safe. If you have any questions, email me, and I will see you later. Bye.